Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Ironbark Podcast, and I am your host, Epion. We're at episode 51. I hope you enjoyed episode 50. It was a nice little reunion episode to bring everybody back in from sort of like the beginnings and reflect on the podcast. I couldn't believe it's been a couple years. It's been more than that. I think it's been like 4 or 5. It's crazy. Time flies when you're having fun or no fun at all. It doesn't matter. Time just keeps coming. Time is like, if you look at it as like a particle, like a little atom, and it just keeps flying through your body like x-rays, little x-rays coming through you, little radiation, and it just ages you, and it doesn't stop. It's unrelenting, and eventually you just get older and older and older, and it's crazy. I never thought I'd get old. I look in the mirror, I see gray hair. It's unreal. Anyway, a little sip of tea there. I'm going to talk about a trip I took 2 weeks ago. I have enough time away from it now where I can reflect on it and give you a non-emotional, non-dramatic rendition of what went down. So I went for a hike. I went to Waterton National Park, just north of the Montana border. So that's just north of Glacier. And you can actually walk into Canada or walk into the States on this trail. It's kind of a cool loop. Make sure you bring your passport, but it's an awesome trail. You get some decent elevation. So hold on, let me just pull out what this is here. So this was the Carthew Lake or Carthew Summit hike. And for frame of reference, you're getting 1,293.7 meters of elevation on this hike. And the distance to the Carthew Lakes is 9.3 kilometers or 5.8 miles. Not terrible, but it's a hike. So I do that hike. I get to the top, I get to the Carthews, and then when I get to the Carthew Lakes, it's beautiful. I highly recommend this hike. This is one of the most beautiful hikes I've ever done. You have incredible lookouts, incredible views. There's a Summit Lake. Summit Lake is like a pure mirror reflection of all the mountaintops. It's beautiful. You get to a certain point in this hike, you can see 3 different lakes. For me, it was a little smoky, a little hazy that day. There's forest fires going on, so the pictures weren't really that brilliant, but I imagine on a clear sunny day, because I think there was also overcast, you're going to get some brilliant photos there. So I highly recommend this hike. And then once you go over the summit, like the highest point in the hike, you begin a descent. And the descent is kind of like in this weird, like, I would call it like a mountain peak canopy where like all these different peaks kind of converge, and nestled in between all of them is sort of like an oasis, because the rest of it looks like a desert. It's all just like shale and stone, and it's desolate because you're in the desolation part of the mountains at this point. But in this little ravine, this little sort of like in the bottom of the where they all converge, like a little ravine type of thing, it's like this beautiful oasis fed by like glacial melt and rivers. So there's like a little stream that goes through it, and there's little cascades, and there's little babbling brooks, if you will. And you go in there, it's beautiful. It's like, it reminded me of walking through some of the gardens in Germany when I was in Kassel, Germany. And they're like, those are man-made, right? So they're very artistic. They have like sculptures. The way the gardens are made, it's a lot of thought and time goes into it, and the cultivation and the curating of the garden. This was like, it was similar, and there was a hand of human at play, because obviously there's some stones that were down and paths are carved and that sort of thing. But generally, I think for the most part, this is a natural thing, and it's very beautiful to see something so beautiful. What I will say is that, okay, before I get to that, you were like in the Garden of Eden. I'm walking along here. There's lots of birds. There's lots of wildlife. A lot of trail chickens. I put some videos up online of that. My Instagram. I was probably just in the story. I haven't put up the reel, like for you guys to watch it if you missed that 24-hour reel or story. Haven't put anything up on X yet. There's marmots there. And generally marmots sound the alarm when you get really close. When you get close and you're coming through like their territory, they have like a little colony, and they start screaming, and they're like, get him out of here, like kind of sort of thing. They're just like chirping away. These marmots, quite different. very different marmots, different than any other marmot I've ever seen. Quite friendly. They sort of approach you on the trail. They'll just kind of like walk by you nonchalantly, not really caring that you're there. And they didn't really seem like they were looking for anything. They didn't really seem like they were looking for food, but they did seem like they were friendly, like people had been feeding them. So anyway, I took a break along the trail. I sat down and these things kind of just wandered out of the bushes from nearby. And they came up to me and I had food, but I wasn't like, they didn't seem interested in the food. And PSA, don't feed the wildlife, and there's reasons for that. And I've done other podcasts on it, but I'm just eating my snacks and it doesn't seem like it's not going for my hand. It's nothing like that. So I'm thinking what does this guy want? And so he starts like nibbling on my boot a bit. And I'm like, why is he nibbling on my boot? So I'm kind of like, hey, yeah, you stop that, and it stops. Because they're kind of like, they're not 100% comfortable. They're still apprehensive of people. And then he started licking my boot. He licked the end of my boot and I'm like, oh, wow. So I guess on my journey through the mountaintop, it's very like dusty and like full of minerals and sediments. And some of that's going to dust up onto my boots. And I reckon these marmots really enjoyed minerals. And I guess there's like salt on them or something close enough to it where they basically just wanted to lick it off. And I'm just like, what a odd and strange little creature and like a little habit it kind of developed in that little region where that's like how it finds like a source of like nourishment is like trying to lick travelers' boots. It's kind of crazy, but I'm thinking like if people camp out there, maybe that's where it came from. People just like nibbling on boots while they're sleeping or something. I don't know. Yeah, so I kind of felt like a Disney prince at one point, not actually, but it was an interesting thing to duly note. So I get to that point in the trail. I walk around the Carthew as I do a full hike around. And I don't do the entire loop because it's getting pretty late and I just want to return back the way I came. It seems like the easiest route. So I, double back. So I'm going to have to paint a visual here. I want you to imagine a straightaway, like a straight trail, okay? And then to your left is a lake. It's a small lake, but it kind of runs along the side of the trail, or the trail runs along the side of the lake. So you walk across that trail all the way down to the end. And then the trail basically ends where the lake ends. But now you can turn left. And when you turn left, you're going up a really steep incline hill, kind of like a switchback. But instead of being a switchback, it's just like a really steep hill. For all intents and purposes, just imagine a switchback. And then at the top of the switchback, instead of it, zig and zagging, it just, I guess once you got to the top of it, you would just make like a 30-degree turn, and you just keep going straight on a flat, or an inclined flat, but not as steep. Okay, so I get to the top of this switchback, this really tough incline. And now remember what I said, like how long this hike was. Now I'm gassed. I'm completely drained. I've been doing it for hours. I'm exhausted. That switchback, that really steep incline, just kicked my butt. My quads are completely dead, like entirely dead, like exhausted. Like I kind of challenge myself. I try to stay fit while I'm out there hiking. And, I'm getting older now. My joints, they're not feeling the same. A little bit of, I've done a lot of stuff to my body over the years with it, whether it be dirt biking, skateboarding, snowboarding, that sort of stuff. And I'm paying the price for it now. When I was young, when I was like 14, I had tore my knee open basically to the bone. And I've had a couple procedures and stuff on it since then, but now it's basically bone on bone and there's no cartilage in between. So after about 4 hours of hiking straight, it will begin to get a little arthritic. It'll get a little arthritis-y, get a little visit from Arthur. You know what I'm saying? So as I'm walking up this switchback, I can hear like the sound of like galloping or like, something running. And I'm like, oh, is that the bighorn sheep? Is that mountain goats? Is there elk up here? Would elk come up a mountain? I'm like, maybe. So I turn around and I look. It's a grizzly bear. And I'm far enough away from it where it's like, this is not good, but I'm still kind of relatively safe, but like not not entirely. So it's at the point where it's reached the end of the lake, like the end of the lake where it's about to come up the switchback. And I'm at the top of the switchback. And I'm going to say this is 200 meters, 400 meters, something like that. So basically half of like a track at like your high school, or maybe the entire thing. It's hard to really gauge. Can't really remember. If I feel like the fearful side of me that's on the side of caution, that's exaggerating, wants to say 2. And I want to see the practical side of me saying 4. So maybe it's somewhere in the middle. It stops and it kind of looks up at me and I make eye contact with it. And I'm like, fuck. It knows I'm here. Not only that, perhaps it was following my scent the entire time. Because, I got a backpack full of snacks and drinks. I'm trying to stay like fueled and healthy on this trip, and low-key PB&Js are like super clutch on a hike. Nothing tastes better. So I'm like, god damn it. I'm like, fuck me. I'm like, no. I'm like, this, like, middle of nowhere, this like summit area. I don't have a lot of tactical advantage other than the high ground, but I'm completely gassed. I got nothing on me for self-defense. I got nothing. You're not even allowed guns in national parks, so in Canada, so that's not even happening. Didn't have the spray, didn't have knife, nothing. I'm completely screwed. I got a backpack. I can swing a backpack. I got rocks. Like, it's not looking good. And this like terror sets in with me, and I'm alone. I haven't seen people for like hours. And I'm just like, what? Like, no. So I'm like thinking like, I just got to keep moving. And I just got to create as much distance as possible and just hope like it just goes a different direction. It doesn't really want to bother with me, and it doesn't really want anything to do with me. And I'm just hoping this and that. And this wasn't a full grown grizzly bear. This was like, I'm guessing, but I'm going to say it's a male. And I'm going to say, it wasn't like fully mature. It seemed like slightly adolescent, but it was more over that adolescent hump and more into that adulthood hump. It had some interesting black markings on it, but it was mostly brown. And I actually thought it was I'm like, that was a mean looking bear, because I was like, that's a pretty interesting color scheme, but it was also kind of like, I kind of wish I got some footage of it because it was so kind of beautiful in a way, but also terrifying because it just was. And I'm like, oh crap. So I keep getting distance. I keep walking. I'm going straight up this incline, and I'm in like this sort of like desert, like, area of the mountain where it's just like all shale and stuff. I'm trying to find like a steep part of the mountain where there's like a steep fall off. So maybe if it runs at me, I can duck down real quick or hang off the side of the mountain or cliffside, or, maybe use momentum and hip toss it or something. And I'm thinking like that's the only thing I have, but nothing's really that close. There is stuff like that a little further away, but it was so far away I was never going to get there in time. So now it gets up to where I was when I first initially saw it, and now I'm definitely like 200 meters away, and it looks at me, and it's got a straightaway to me if it really wants it, and I'm looking at it. It gets up on its hind legs. It does sort of like a surveillance of like the air. It's got like its snout going. It's kind of looking like side to side, doing like this weird kind of like rotationary thing with its head. And then I think it realizes like I'm a person, and it's like, oh shit, like never mind. And there seemed to be like a bit of hesitancy. Like it's like it clicked. It's like, oh, it's like a person. Like, oh no, it's like it's standing there like, and I'm kind of walking backwards, but like slowly. And it just like takes off. So I think like it's had some negative experience with people before, where maybe it was like park rangers or whatever. Maybe they've like used pepper balls on it or whatever. It didn't want any smoke. It didn't want to play. So it, instead of coming towards me, it shoots straight up the side of this mountain and just keeps going and going and going, and it's just running. And I'm like, I've never been more thankful in all my life, because that was terrifying enough, and I was quite far away from it. But I was caught out in the middle of nowhere, completely exhausted, nothing to defend myself after hours of hiking. And I was like alone, no cell phone service. There was kind of like a little bit of cell phone service here and there at the top of the mountain. I was sort of sending messages to like friends and stuff, and I was saying like, hey, this is the situation. This is what's going on. The plan was if the bear did attack me, I was going to throw my phone onto the trail, and I don't keep a password or nothing on my phone. So eventually another hiker would come through that area. It's hiked quite frequently enough where within a few days someone would find it if I went missing or something like that. And like then they would know what happened at least. Because if you just keep it in your pocket or in your bag, it might just get dragged into the woods and never seen again, right? Because no one's going to venture off the trail. I mean, if they did, it would be very unlikely and like very fortunate for me, I guess. But if to find something like that, but just like witnessing how quickly it can move up these mountains on an incline and across like uneven ground that's like rocks kind of like slipping and sliding with complete ease, like butter. Like it's just like you running across like a straight flat track and like great shoes and equipment, like, you know what, and like cleats and stuff, and it's just like easy like butter. And I'm just like, man, these things are like, you really you can't really imagine like the strength and power of these animals. Like they're running up and down hills, dealing with exposure to the elements every single day of the year. That like there's no human on earth that does that kind of training. And just like to be born and bred in that environment, like just puts you on a whole another level than a human. But anyway, I just kept walking because I was like, I don't care. Like, what if it changes its mind? Like, I just wanted to create so much distance as possible, like as much distance as possible. And I had something very strange happen, and I've had similar instances of this happening when I was on high elevation hikes. I don't know if it's because of lack of oxygen or if like air starts to get thinner or what it is, but this is just what happens sometimes. I don't know if it's an allergic reaction to certain minerals or dust that's out there, but my arms began to swell, sort of like an allergic reaction. It got like poofy, and I'm thinking, oh, that's weird. It's kind of like swelling briefly, and I'm like, oh, this has kind of happened before, and I'm thinking like maybe it's an oxygen related thing. And remember, I'm like huffing and puffing, like I'm like gasping for air because I'm just so like exhausted, but I'm just pushing myself. And then they turn like this jaundice green type color. And that was very strange. And I'm thinking like, is this like a kidney issue? Because I've had issues with my kidneys. And I'm like, is this like kidney disease sign? Like, what does this mean? And like, it's funny. Like people think like, I'm like joking around like, oh, you think you're turning into the Hulk? Or you think you're like, no, I don't think that. It's like, and so I started Googling it when I got back. I'm like, what the hell was that? That's the strangest thing. I'm like, should I have health concerns? Like, what should be going on? What's going on here? And apparently, if there's like exposure to like, I think it's copper sulfide or something like that. And there's like a lot of like green stone up there. It can get into your system and it can cause that. I'm thinking maybe that was it because I was just like breathing it in. I was up hiking up there. There's dust up in the air. And then when I'm really breathing hard and trying to get as much oxygen into my lungs as possible, I've been taking in a lot more of this like copper sulfide or sulfate or whatever it is. I don't know. But anyway, lots of green rocks up there. And I'm thinking maybe that was just it. It was just too much of that. So I'm like also dealing with some like poisoning while I'm going. So I'm at like ultimate disadvantage. But anyway, that's my story. I went from living the life with marmots and I don't know, trying to stop them from eating my Blundstones, to talking to trail chickens along the way, to being completely mortified by a grizzly bear. Like there's nothing scarier than that out on a trail. Nothing scarier. So in conclusion, carry pepper spray or bear spray. That's what I meant, bear spray. You know, you gotta stay safe out there. I don't know how that works crossing the Montana-Canada border. If you're allowed to bring bear spray across that, you might have to like forfeit it at the border or something like that. And I can't imagine that not being like a common occurrence. Or maybe they'll let you have it. Like maybe that's an instance where it's like, well, as long as you continue to hike the trail, it's perfectly fine. I don't know. Yeah, that's my story for my last adventure. And I haven't really been out since. Like it kind of unnerved me a bit, I guess. Haven't really been out. I was out today. But today I just went for a drive around the mountains, checked out a few things, you know, glad to see, what is it? Abraham Lake now is back to its like high levels instead of being completely low again. So that was kind of cool to see. Drove by the Weeping Wall, and I think that's kind of like in northern Banff near Jasper. Sorry, I got to take a sip of tea. I really do. My throat you just keep talking like this for 20 minutes straight, like your voice just goes. But yeah, I don't know. Nothing special. Didn't really see it. Saw some whitetails. You don't see whitetails too often. They're usually like mule deer or something. So those are kind of cool to see. They're a lot more skittish than mule deer. Yeah, I wish I had more interesting stuff to share with you guys. I don't really think I do. Trying to think. Got nothing. I got nothing for you. I think that might be a wrap. We hit 20 minutes. 20 minutes is great. There's nothing better than 20 minutes. A little 20-minute podcast story for you. It's beautiful. It's nice. It's endearing. And I don't want anyone freaking out saying like, "Oh, that bear was stalking you. You should get it killed." I don't really know if it was. I don't think it was. The potential of the danger was there. The fear of God was in me. But considering how skittish it got when it like locked in what I was and it took off like and basically adjacent, I don't know. I wouldn't say the opposite direction, but a direction not towards me. I would say it was like it was curious. It was like trying to figure out what this like the PBs and J's were coming from, like where that scent was. I had ate them all at that point, so I don't even know what it was. It would have been like trail mix or something in my bag. Oh, I had granola bars. I had like chocolate granola bars, but they were sealed, so I don't know. I should have realized, like, I remember when I was on that trail, I was seeing like some scat along it, and I was like, huh. I was like, that. I was like looking at it, I was like, I wonder what that is. Like, in it, like now in retrospect, I was like, it's bear scat, but it was like small. It was like smaller than what I'm used to seeing. And I was kind of like, oh, like I was kind of thinking like, oh, like looks like I was thinking like maybe a yote. I was like, a yote wouldn't be like, so it was, I don't know. That's all I got for you folks. That's all I got. We did good. Stay safe out there. Keep yourself safe. Hike safe. You check for ticks. Bring your bear spray. Hike in groups. When you're alone and you're not bothering other hikers on the trail, it's okay to play a bit of music. It's okay. As long as no one else is around and it's not too loud. But you do want, make sure those animals know you're coming. And don't feed the wildlife. And I don't really know if marmots licking your boots counts as feeding wildlife. Might be. I don't want to be in trouble for that one, but I wasn't feeding them. I was not feeding them, and I did not know that was a thing. And I did not know, and I tried preventing them, but I didn't. See, now here's a fine line. To stop that thing from licking my boot. And I didn't put anything on my boot. Don't fucking think I did that. To prevent it, you almost got to be mean or cruel to it. Like, you can shoo it away. You can try to shoo it away to some extent. And that works. Like, just kind of like, you don't have to touch it. You don't have to do anything. You just have to kind of gesture. And it kind of like shoos a little bit. But then it comes back because it's a little apprehensive. But at what point does that, like, if you boot it, like I wouldn't boot it, but if you booted it, because you're like, oh, I don't want to feed the wildlife, but then it's like, well, now you're like harming wildlife, and you're like, you know what I mean, like harassing them sort of. So it's harassing them at like, so you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. So it's kind of like whatever. I'm not introducing like foreign substances or substances from home or stuff that's not in their natural habitat. This is just something that was in it. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. Okay, but it's true. That's what happened. I don't know. Life is strange. What else can I talk about? Oh, I wanted to talk a bit about my personal state of affairs, like some of my personal life. I was reflecting on a lot of stuff, but I don't know. I don't know if I want to talk publicly about it. It's kind of just like, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. It's about pets. Some pets I've had. I think I mentioned on the previous podcast that my mom's dog Sable. I had to put her down. She was very old and got, she was getting very sick, and she was losing her legs, couldn't eat anymore, and she was just basically suffering at that point. So I had to make that difficult choice. Prolonged it as much as I could, but you get into this really weird thing where it's like suffering, right? It's like cruelty at a certain point. You don't know. It's rough. Kind of wanted to talk about that stuff, but I have to like map it all out because I don't really have it all committed straight to memory. we'll kind of go through everything. Maybe I'll try to do that right now, actually. Maybe I will. So, yeah. What was it? In 2015, we're going back now. My mother just passed away from a 3-year battle with cancer. This is back in 2015. I was basically caring for her a lot of the time. I was doing these shots that were like blood thinners. I forget what it's called, like a Federin or something like that. That's probably not right, but no, I don't think that's right at all. Anyway, these blood thinner shots, because she was blood clotting from other medications, so I'd have to give those to her daily. She was struggling. She turned into like a rail. She's rail thin, obviously. That's what cancer does. You know, at certain points, she was having multiple surgeries. She had different, different, like, she was losing a lot of her like faculties. Like, she had a colostomy bag on her. She had like the urine bag on her as well. But she wanted to like fight for life every step of the way. There was no point where she was just like giving up, throwing in the towel, and despite all these sort of like quality of life things that were just diminishing, losing the ability to walk, like having a walker with wheels and like a wheelchair type of deal. Bedridden most of the time. Difficulty eating. Nothing tastes good. Everything tastes like metallic because of like the chemo and stuff like that. It was rough. And then eventually she ends up in hospice care. It was on her deathbed. You know, she's kind of in and out of it. But when I was in the room alone with her, she kind of snapped out of it briefly. I felt like she would snap out of it briefly when I would talk abruptly and loudly, and I would just be like, "Hey, Mom, like, it's Ian, like, how's it going?" And then she would kind of like snap out of it. It's like her eyes would go from being like glazed over to like not there to like there again. She just looks at me. She's just like, "I love you." And like that just sticks with me to this day. It's pretty rough to think about, getting choked up thinking about it. There's a lot of other like family complexities involved in this situation that I'm not going to delve into because I'm not going to put that kind of, stuff out there. I'm just going to talk about my personal experience. And then on her deathbed, before she kind of went like really wonky, because she was for a few days, or like for maybe like 2 weeks or so, and I was there pretty much every day. She's like, "Ian," that's my real name if you haven't caught on. I want you to take care of my dogs. She had 2 dogs that were they were older than 10 at the time. I think they're around 10, maybe. I can't remember. You can do the math as I talk this out. And then she was like, "You're the only one with like basically his shit together, with a head on your shoulders. You'll be the least kind of burdened by it and most capable of taking care of them. I want you to take care of my dogs." And both of them, she said, both of them. One was a Chinese crested, so like a small dog, like a petite dog that's like hairless. This one was only semi-hairless. This one that's a powder puff, but I'll digress there. And then a toy poodle. And she's like, and then I'm like, "Yeah, Mom, no problem." I'm kind of like laughing because she's like, I'm like, "Of course I'm going to do that." And I think we already had previously spoken about this before. And she's like, "I'm not joking. If you don't fucking do it, I'm going to haunt you." And I was just like, "Mom, no, like, don't worry, I'll do it." So that was 2015. Life carries on. I'm taking care of her animals. They're my pets basically at this point. And they're young enough and healthy enough. They go on walks with me and hikes with me, and they're spry and they're able to jump and do tricks and all this stuff. And that's like I was talking about earlier. Time just passes through you, right? Like it just passes through animals, everything, every living object, it just passes through. And they get older. Now the year I think is 2021. Jack's quite old. He's got like doggy dementia. He's starting to lose his hind legs. steep decline. At this point, I think he was, I want to say he was like 16 to 18. I can't really remember. Quite old. Another like real difficult time and decision, right? So I end up having to feed him by hand. The only times he can eat is when I'm home from work and I'm feeding him. He can't like stand up at the food bowl. He's having trouble. Like I have to hold him to go bathroom outside. And you know, when I'm at work, he's going to be soiling. It's like bedding. I would have him in like a little crate. It wasn't like a good quality of life, but you know, you hold on, you know, you try to do it as long as possible. And at that point, I had texted an ex-girlfriend about it, who was a veterinarian. And she just kind of said, like, you know, yeah, she was kind of advocating for, like, I remember she would mention, like, she's had to euthanize dogs that were even, like, not as worse off as him back when I was dating her. And she was like, well, it's been a long time coming. So I ended up taking him to the vet. You know, we had to put him to sleep. I thanked him for everything he did. I was like, thank you for being there with my mom, keeping her company while she was sick all those, you know, those 3 years. You know, you're a good dog. I can't talk about this. It chokes me up. It was just like, you know, like, you can finally rest, like, you know, his name was Jack. It's like, you can finally rest, Jack. It's like, you fulfilled your mission. Like, duty done. Like, good dog, you know? Man, I had the vet in tears. So emotional. It's an emotional thing. That was in 2022. Early 2022. I think. I could be losing track of time. It could have been late 2021. It was probably late 2021 or early 2022. I could look back through the records and find out, but it's weird when you go through these things of loss. Like, you kind of just it's a common thing where you just sort of like time, unless you have like markers, it kind of just keeps going by. And then 2023, I also have a cat. It's a black cat. Her name was Slink. I had basically had her since I was, I want to say 19 years old, when she was a kitten. And basically my friend, he was a Korean exchange student at some point, but then he was like a full-fledged student, and he was in university, and he had adopted this cat, but then he had to go back to Korea for military service, and he couldn't take the cat with him. So he basically, when I was like visiting him before he left back for Korea, he's like, you know, you can have this cat. And I kind of wanted the cat too, because I loved it. It was a very lovable cat, and I ended up taking it with me. Just like super fond memories of that. And then I took care of it. Like, he never came back. And then this is my cat. This cat was with me through different types of friendships, different stages of my life, through college, throughout like post-college, different relationships. I had it my entire adult life, for more or less, minus like 1 year. So in 2023, you know, even before that, I want to say like even like 2016, 2015-ish. It was 2015 in the fall. I take the cat to the vet because she would like randomly lose a lot of weight and like vomit a lot. And I took her to the vet, and the vet was like, oh, she has cancer. Like, there's a lump here. They're talking about like euthanasia, or just let us know if it gets worse. But then like she bounced back and she kind of gained weight and got a little heavier again. She's always been kind of runty. She wasn't vomiting anymore. And I was like, okay, well, as long as you're fit and able and not in pain, not showing signs of pain or suffering or anything like that, you're going to continue on living, kitty. And that kitty continued on living. No sign of sickness whatsoever. And then 2023 happens. It comes back, and it comes back sudden and rapidly and way worse. And she loses control of her faculties. She's very, very, very thinner than she's ever been. Not eating at all. And I'm trying. Like, I love this cat with every fiber of my being. With every fiber of my being, I love this cat. It's my closest companion, longest lived companion. It outlived basically was there with like my mom passing, was there through like different breakups that had different impacts on me, like, and it always, I can't even talk. Sorry. I can't even. All I want to say is that it like loved me unconditionally, like most companion animals do, right? Any of you listening that have experienced that, you know what I'm talking about. And I think that, like, I always think that cat was special because it's like, oh, it came when it was called. It'd always greet me at the door, run down the hallway, and meet me when I came home. And it just wanted to sit on my lap. If I was watching like a movie, laying in bed on my phone, or playing video games at the computer, it was on my lap. It's a good cat. It was like if it saw like a spider in the house, it would like go and deal with it. It was just like, it was a good like pest control type of cat. It was great. So I took her for one last trip to the mountains, showed her around. Because the day before that, took her to the vet, and this vet was a great doctor. Great vet. He was a cat guy too, and he had recently had to do it like a month ago too to his cats, and had this whole like spiel I'm giving you. And he's like, I'll do you a favor, buddy. He's like, I'll give her a little bit of this and a little bit of that, get her on some fluids, but you're gonna think maybe she's better, but it's just temporary. And she perked up a bit, but she was so bad that it didn't make that much of it. Wasn't enough of a difference to fool me, right? It was like, I can still see her very sick. But I took her to the mountains, showed her the mountains, would hike with her in a little carrier. Didn't like do big hikes, like little walks out to like show her like the like really beautiful lakes and mountains. She saw a bighorn sheep. She just looks at it. She's like, what? Like her eyes just go wide. She's like, what in the fuck is that? Took her to like a nice little waterfall. Just spent the day with her. And then the next day, had to put her to sleep. Whew. And this is where people say like money can't buy happiness. But if like I had like hit a lottery jackpot or was like wildly rich or successful, I think it's like 10 to 30 grand for like a cat kidney. And I don't know if they harvest kidneys from like other cats that they have to euthanize or something like that, or if that's like a possible thing. But if you had 10 or 30 grand, like if I had that, or if I had that and I was like responsibly able to spend that without like losing, like being like, I don't know, very like, because I feel like maybe like, you could take out like an equity loan on property or something like that. You could do it. Like, wouldn't that be happiness or whatever? If you had all that money and you could like possibly extend the life of like this lifelong companion, replace the kidney, because apparently she was in kidney failure. But maybe they'd open her up and see like a ton of cancer and be like, oh, it's metastasized, it's elsewhere, and it just ends up being like complete whatever anyway. But let's say it's not. Like, in that instance, I think money could buy you happiness. I don't know. That's a controversial thing to say, but I don't know. Right? That's something I want y'all to think about. I don't think money buys happiness, but I think in some instances What if it gave me a few more years? Right? So that's 2023. And then 2024, we have Sable, the Chinese crested, who's just been on a steep decline, for a while now. Those Chinese cresteds, they don't age gracefully at all. If you've seen Deadpool and Wolverine 3, or whatever it's called, that dog in it, that is basically what Sable looked like. And we just called her Demon Dog. But, same thing with her. She was losing her back legs. I had to hold her up to feed her. The bathroom thing, hold her to go outside. And, I'd have to go to work, come home, soil her bed, throw out the bedding, buy like a new bedding, stuff. There's no way to live. And I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, is she in pain and suffering all the time? She's just laying there. Quality of life. Difficult decision. But I always find that there's a fine line when they can't eat. Like, even when you're holding them up to eat, they can't eat. And it's like, do you just let them go naturally? Some people say just let them go naturally, but I feel like it's almost like animal cruelty at that point, right? And I don't know. It's like you're just keeping a dog there and letting it suffer. I don't know. I'm not the person to get into it with on this because I don't actually know. I don't have the answers. And no one else can really give me a right answer. You get all different kinds of opinions. But the vet agrees. So we'll go with that. And then, yeah, I don't know. Thanked her for, same thing with Jack. Thanked her for keeping my mom company, comforting her during her sickness, telling her she was a good dog. Yeah, so it's been these dogs are older. She was like 18. Something crazy like that. And because I feel like they were already older, like when I had them, when my mom gave them to me. They were on the upper end there of adulthood dogs. But 2022, or the end of 2021, 2023, and then 2024 have just been a string of like loss. And the cat was a big one to me because I wasn't expecting that. The dogs were getting older, and it was kind of like, it's like a long time coming type of thing, where it's kind of like, felt kind of like a natural part of life. The cat seemed like gone too soon type of thing, but damn, dude, like it's been rough. Yeah. So you couple that with a few breakups, dated one girl for about 5 years. She was there for me throughout the course of my mother's sickness. I don't know if it was like after my mom passed, if I just wasn't myself or my head wasn't like on straight or whatever. Like we ended up like being different people and growing apart. And then we kind of went our separate ways. We mutually broke up. I mentioned it to her and she said she was kind of feeling the same thing. And I was surprised. I was shocked by that, but it made sense. At that point, we had, I guess, kind of become different people, or I don't know. Maybe I was just dealing with the loss of my mom in a way where I was kind of like closed off. I don't know. But that wasn't, for me, that wasn't like the worst breakup. It kind of like, I don't know, felt like that was okay. I was okay with it. But I don't know. I feel like it was good. Like it was a good relationship. I don't have any kind of like ill feelings towards it or at all. Like I hope she doesn't have any towards me. But it was definitely helped me. She definitely helped me get through a really tough time in my life. So that was. And then from there, I go on to meet a woman. I didn't meet her. I met her back in college. So, like, maybe 5 or 6 years prior to that. And I knew her back in college. We kind of saw each other. When we first met, it was at a pub night. And I ended up, like, kissing her on the dance floor. I'd been kissing a bunch of girls that night. But whatever. It is what it is. Apparently she had saw that, but I was like the guy apparently back then. And I don't know. She was kind of like dorkier back then. I think she had like braces. She was kind of still like, her hair was like super, 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 super long, like really long mermaid hair. Like, and she was like kind of like a tall girl. She was like 5'10". And hair went past her butt. And she said she would have like mermaid hair, something like that. So she didn't really, and it was just kind of like long natural. Like she didn't do anything like crazy. Like she wasn't like a cosmetic girl or anyway. I'm gonna call her dorky, but she was still like cute. Like, you know, she was just still like, we're fresh into college. Like we're basically teenagers, like 19. I think she was like a year younger than me. She's probably like 18. And then actually, she might have been 19. Yeah, she was definitely 19 because I was 20 at the time, so this is the second year of college. And yeah, that's when I first met her. She was best friends with a girl my buddy really wanted to be with, and you know, kind of date or whatever. And so I was kind of like, okay, well, I'll hang out with this girl even though I'm not particularly interested in her, but you know, if it helps you out, buddy, like as a good wingman, it's like, okay, I'll double date with you and stuff like that. So we did like movies and stuff like that. We never got official. We never went official, but we saw each other, you know, go out on drives and walks and all that stuff. Vaguely remember. And then I guess my buddy and that girl, like, they fell off. And or I think I fell off with this girl before then, and I think it didn't help him any. But she had told me, I could be remembering wrong, and she didn't remember this, or maybe she just denied it. But I remember like I stopped talking to her because she said she had met up with like an ex-boyfriend for coffee or something like that. And at the time, I was kind of like, well, if this was going somewhere, it's not now. I feel kind of like whatever by this, but we weren't dating, but we're definitely not going to be dating now. And then that's when I ended up dating the girl that I was with for 5 years. And then after that 5 years had ended, I get like a mess. I guess like my, I changed one of my display pictures on like social media where I'm not like in a couple photo anymore or something like that. And she sends me a message because I guess she's like inferring or guessing that maybe I'm single at that point, which is correct. And she's kind of like, oh, like sends me a message. I kind of ignore it, but then I start messaging her. I think I ignored it for a few days. And I start messaging her and I'm like, oh, well, you know, I'll give this a chance. I'll date her. And then I meet her and she's become she's no longer like kind of like this dorky 19-year-old anymore. She's sort of, I think, well, I guess 6 years would be like 25. And she's like this gorgeous woman. She's a beautiful woman. The type of beautiful where she doesn't really need to put on a whole lot of makeup, like barely any. You know, natural hair, natural like long eyelashes, just like a beautiful natural beauty. Within the first year of seeing her, I fall like madly in love with her, like deep, like more than like anyone I think I ever did. Just need a sip here. But I feel like this relationship, as much as I like had fallen in love with her, was from the beginning always destined to fail. And the reason I think that is because I remember her telling me very early on that she's like, hey, I just want you to know I've booked this trip, this thing where I'm going to do like next summer and a year from now, where I'm going to go to Switzerland and work at a camp for a few months. And I was kind of thinking, like, at the time I didn't really take it serious. I'm like, because she was like, well, I have to get hired on first and I have to officiate everything. There's still like a thing to go through. I'm kind of like, okay, well, maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe it does. And well, then within a year, it did happen. We had traveled to Germany together. She went on a flight to Switzerland and I went on a flight to Canada, where she spent the summer there. And it was, yeah, I don't know. Like at first, it was weird. Like, it's like, okay, I hope nothing happens. But so she went to go work as like a nurse at a summer camp for kids. And I don't know, like a lot of different stories and stuff came out of there. Stuff like, and then she was like kind of like not telling like whole truths and half truths. And then it was really weird. I don't know what happened, but you know, maybe something did, maybe something didn't. And a lot of you listening to this will be like, oh yeah, something definitely did. You know, you're there with like a bunch of people from all over the world. You know, it's a lot of single guys there, you know, teaching kids like sports and stuff. They're maybe like athletic types and that sort of thing. A lot of mistrust after that. We spent a year after that still together. But like the trust in the relationship was broken. And it was basically a year-long breakup to where eventually she was able to be the stronger one to like walk away from it and end it. And yeah. Let's see, that would have been, I don't know, 2017, 2018 maybe. And then the pandemic happens. And I don't know, I can't remember. There's probably like other women I've seen in between, but I don't really recall. And then the pandemic happens, and I end up dating that veterinarian for 2 years. And then basically as the pandemic like starts to wind down, I don't know. She was kind of more of like a socialite with like a social group that I didn't have a particular interest in being like involved in, and they kind of, I don't know. She was really into these kind of like wine garden party type things with people from different walks of life that weren't necessarily great. Some of them were great, some of them not so great. But I think that whole socialite aspect was really important to her. I think she ended, and I went to like one of them, but then I think she started going to them by herself, and then I think she was introduced to somebody else, and I think she met that guy. And I think, you know, and I think, well, you know what, she's happier with him than whatever, good for her. Like, I'm not going to be resentful about that, because it's like, if it wasn't working with us, it wasn't working. But, dated 2 years, and then basically after that, I was kind of like, okay, now it's a blank slate. I'm good to, like, you know, move wherever I want, get any job I want, this and that. I'd become quite successful with like some of my housing investments. So I was kind of like looking for a big change in my life and to sort of move after the pandemic. So it kind of naturally seemed like the, I don't know, kind of like a little bit faded in a way. So can't really get too upset about that. And then I ended up dating like this like pretty little thing for about like a month, but I ended up like kind of like meeting her at a time where I was moving, but I wasn't sure if I was going to land a job for sure. And then I vacationed with her, and then on the vacation I got noticed I was getting a job. She seemed like excited to come move with me. I think there was like I moved first, and then like a couple weeks later she was going to move out after, or like a month after or something like that. But then cold feet, calls it off, you know, say la vie, whatever, it's fine. I didn't date her very long, but I would have if she would have came, because cute little thing, seemed like a sweetheart. Yeah, and then that would have been that breakup would have been 2022. So the breakup with, yeah, I don't know. It's just been like a string of like crappy breakups. And yeah, I don't know. And then I've dated some other girls here and there for, I don't know, 4 months. Just stuff in that didn't really go anywhere. But yeah, between the loss of family members, and there's other family stuff, but I'm not going to divulge. And then there's last year I lost my mom's best friend, who was like a godmother to me. She was there through the whole thing. She got really sick so her husband, they were in bed, and she got like really sick, really ill, went to the hospital. She couldn't pull through, and she's had, health issues her whole life. She had like heart replacement, like all this stuff. When the year my mom passed away, she made sure like, certain things were being sent to me. So like I got a gift at Christmas delivered to me, and it was like from my mom, but I'm pretty sure like Chantel had arranged that. And like God bless her heart, she, and that I remember that phone call. I called her. I'm like, oh, you just brought back a whole wave of emotions for me, opening that up. And then I've been meaning to call her before she passed away, and I think maybe I made a phone call once, but I didn't get anyone to pick up. Just always make that phone call, because you never know when you're going to lose someone. So that was, I feel like was that earlier this year, or was that late last year? It was recent. Anyway, it's just like the older you, like time, it just doesn't stop. It just keeps coming. It's non-relentless. And this is where I'm at. Whew. Don't be thinking I'm depressed or anything, because that's not the case. I love life. Like, I love life, every like moment of it. I'm like my mom in that way. I'll hang on like till I'm skin and bone, and I just want to live for the sake of living. I remember having that talk with my mom. She's like, I don't care. Like, I don't care how much pain it is. Like, it's about life. And I'm just like, yeah, it is about life. I don't know. I love life. It's character development, bro. Fucking character development. Now I just need to find a wife. I ain't getting any younger. So the dating world it's not the best. It's not great. Trying to find someone, there's a lot of red flags, and I don't really want to waste time dating the wrong person, right? It's like, I've seen this type of behavior before. I've dated this type of thing before. I know where this leads. I know I'm not comfortable with this. I know this isn't going to bode well long term. Yada, yada, yada. Everything you can think of under the sun. So it's just it's a bit of a struggle. But, so I'm just kind of casually dating, and I'm looking for the real one. Not trying to waste too much time. So it's kind of like, okay, go on a date, talk to someone, message them a bit. And they tell you some stuff that you don't like or whatever. It's like a red flag. You're kind of like, okay, no point in dragging this out and finding out the hard way. Like, you just kind of like say, see what else is out there, this and that. But yeah, that's where I'm at now. That's where I'm at now. That was a long story I just gave y'all. Hope it wasn't too much. But I wanted to do this podcast for a while. I had actually recorded a full Slink podcast about my black cat. I thought I had it somewhere on my computer saved away, and I was going to release it at some point and talk about. But then I felt like I have this weird thing where I don't talk about things publicly. Like, I don't post on socials like this crappy thing happened to me or this and that. But I've sort of kind of become more open-minded to it. But there's like it's like they call it like stoicism. It's sort of like you just sort of, it's your burden to bear, you brunt it, you carry it. And obviously you talk to your close friends and family about it. But there's a lot of people that, you know, they'll say like rest in peace, so and so, like loved you a lot. And like, you know what? And some people think that's like, you know, like poor taste or like poor form. And I don't think so. Whatever helps people cope, whatever coping mechanism it is, and it helps them get through it, and they want, like, that's them saying like, you know, give me love, give me affection, or get recognized, or reach out, like, and they need someone, like, by all means, like that, I think that's perfectly suitable. I don't know if that's what this podcast is, but it's not. I don't know. Like, it's just sort of like, it's nice to like put it out there though, you know. It's like, it's nice to talk about. This isn't like a sympathy plea, because everything's now far removed from being relevant. But it's like, it's just, and it's crazy because, like, you know, where there's death, there's also life. So a lot of my friends, you know, they're losing people too, but they're having kids. They're having, like, and that's kind of like something like I want to do. It's like, you know, as you get older, you lose people, you lose your parents and stuff like that, grandparents, et cetera, aunts, uncles. But you become the elder, and then you have the younger, and you sort of not replace, because it's not like the kid becomes your dad, but it's like you fulfill a new role, someone takes on your old role, and the kids take on your old role, like you're no longer the kid. And it's like that sense of family permeates or persists throughout the generation and through the cycle of life. And I think that's key. I think that's key to being a human. You know, I talk to a lot of people about having kids, because there's a lot of people I know that don't have kids, and there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. If that's your life choice, that's fine. If that's how you want to live your life, that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not shaming anyone, nothing like that. The only point I will make is, I think if you have one life to live and you want to fill that with as many meaningful experiences as possible, part of being human is sort of like having kids, and that is a whole experience on its own. And if you deprive yourself of that experience, and my heart goes out to anyone who can't have kids, who doesn't have kids, like I don't have kids and want them. Adoption is a thing, right? There's kids that need love and affection that maybe their parents were gone too soon as well. But anyway, becoming like a father or mother, it's sort of a part of the life experience, of the human experience. Now, I've been a grown adult for some years now without kids. I've lived that experience. I know what that experience is like. Do I continue to rinse and repeat that experience until the day I die? Or do I say, it's time for me to enter a new phase of my life, to grow more as a human? And maybe this will help me grow emotionally, spiritually, mentally, as an individual, as a fully complete human, and experience like that next stage of life. And it kind of made me wonder, is like, if you don't have a relationship that enters into that next realm, like, is that relationship going to last forever? Because I don't know too many people that are like childless that go on to last very long without having like some sort of open relationship, or like they're like swingers or something. Because it's kind of like, I don't know, there's nothing really helping you guys. Like you're kind, it's like one of those only things in life where you, like, having kids, raising kids, I feel like is like the only other thing you don't, it's like one of the things in life you don't do by yourself. Or, I mean, people do, but it's one of those things where you can do it with somebody else. And it's like you kind of grow together and experience this thing together. You try to raise these good humans. And that's a real interesting thing. That's a really interesting thing. Like, I feel like that's something I want to experience. Something I want to, like, I want the full human experience. And I think that's like quintessential to it. And I mean, that's quite a commitment. It's a lifelong commitment, their entire life. But yeah, I don't know. It's food for thought. It's like, do you just want, like, is your relationship just going to stagnate and become stale? And basically you're just going to do the same thing all the time and you're not going to grow further with that person, have like a deeper connection with that person. And you can still have kids and grow apart, like that happened. But let's say it's the quintessential type of relationship, true love, that sort of thing. And it's like, you just go on your yearly vacations, you go to the bars, you meet up with your friends, you meet up with the family, and you just day in, day out, it's like, or do you introduce this like new variable? It's like kids. And then you get to experience this other person, experience motherhood or fatherhood. And you watch them grow as a person. And you help them grow as a person. And, you know, when you raise these kids up, and try to raise them up proper and all that type of stuff, a better version of you. I don't know. There's something to that. I feel like there's something to that. I don't know. If life is a smorgasbord of experiences, I think that is probably one of them that I would like to experience. And people talk crap about marriage. They're like, oh, it's so expensive. You'll have 4 of them. Blah, 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 divorce. I think it's still an experience worth having. You know, you only get one go around. If you're laying on your deathbed, you want to be laying there and being like, you know what? I kind of wish I experienced what it was like to have a wedding. Or would you rather be like, I don't know. If you had unlimited resources and money, you'd probably try to experience everything, right? Anyway, folks, we're in deep on this one. I don't even know if I should post it. But if you're listening to it, you did. And I did. Cheers, everyone. Have a good night.